Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into one of the most famous poems ever written, T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, to see if we can uncover a secret sickness that's been hiding in plain sight for, get this, 100 years.
Okay, let's dive right in. You know, T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland is a poem that has haunted and, let's be honest, confused readers for a century with its fractured world and these incredibly stark images. But what if the source of all that fear isn't what we've always been told it was?
So, for decades, the official story, the one we've all been taught in school, has told us to read this poem through one very specific lens.
And that lens is war. Critics have pretty much cemented The Wasteland as the quintessential poem about the aftermath of World War I. It's all about a culture in pieces, spiritual emptiness, personal despair, the whole collage of fragments left behind by a global conflict.
But here's where it gets really interesting. While the war was ending, another, even deadlier catastrophe was sweeping the globe, the 1918 flu. We're talking tens of millions dead. And yet, if you look through the mountains of analysis on this poem, the pandemic is basically a ghost. It's just not there.
So that makes you wonder, right? We remember the war so vividly in our art and our history books. But why has this pandemic, a plague that infected a third of the world's population, been so forgotten? Why does it feel so faint in our collective memory?
Well, the answer really gets to the heart of how we process collective trauma. And as it turns out, war and disease get recorded in our minds in completely different ways.
And this chart just breaks it down perfectly. Think about it. War gives us a story. It has heroes, villains, a clear enemy, and a sense of collective sacrifice that we build memorials around. A pandemic, though, that's a whole different beast. It's this intensely lonely, isolating battle you fight inside your own body against an enemy you can't even see. Death isn't a noble sacrifice. It's just a quiet, private tragedy.
But, and this is the crucial point, where official history kind of fails, literature can step in. It's uniquely good at capturing the stuff that's hard to represent, that invisible, strange conversation that happens between a sick body and a feverish mind. So what if we look at The Wasteland again? Can we find the pandemic's ghost haunting its lines?
Okay, so where do we start this investigation? Well, not with the poem itself, but with the poet. To find a viral context, we have to start with the biographical evidence. We have to look at the man himself.
Now, just look at this timeline. This is where it gets really personal. Just as the war is ending, bam, the flu hits Eliot's own household and he and his wife get sick during the absolute deadliest wave of the pandemic. And his letters from this period, they're not about the war. They're like a diary of sickness. He's constantly writing about weakness, exhaustion, what he even calls pneumonic influenza. And this all leads up to the nervous breakdown he had right as he was finishing the poem. And get this, he even started using the pandemic's language to describe his incredibly strained marriage, calling it a domestic influenza. That tells you everything, right? It shows just how deeply this atmosphere of sickness had seeped into every corner of his mind, blurring the lines between physical illness and emotional pain. Okay, so armed with all this biographical context, let's go back and reread the poem. All of a sudden, its famously difficult, fragmented style starts to look a lot less like a soldier's shell shock and a lot more like a literal fever dream. Now, to really grasp this reading, we need a key concept. It's called delirium logic. And the idea is that the poem's bizarre structure, the way it jumps between scenes and voices with no warning, isn't just some artsy modernist experiment. It's a direct reflection of how a feverish mind actually works.
And the second key term we need is innervation. Now, this is more than just feeling tired. It's a profound, total draining of energy. Physical, mental, even moral. It's like a state of living death. And that feeling? It is all over Eliot's letters, and it absolutely saturates the entire mood of The Wasteland.
So let's put these ideas to the test. Let's take delirium logic and innervation and apply them to some of the poem's most famous lines. Take this one, for example. It's always been read as this big moment of spiritual crisis, referencing Buddhist and Christian ideas.
But with the pandemic in mind, it becomes something so much more visceral. Burning, burning, burning isn't just about the soul. It's the raw, physical sensation of a body being consumed by fever. And that's an experience that would have been painfully familiar to millions of his readers at the time.
And this idea just keeps building. Let's look at another one of these powerful images. We're told this is about a spiritually dry, barren land.
But it also perfectly captures a key symptom of influenza that Eliot himself wrote about: extreme dryness.
The poem's famous spiritual thirst is suddenly grounded in the literal, agonizing thirst of a feverish, dehydrated body. The crisis isn't just happening in the soul, it's happening in the cells.
And this all brings us to a really crucial point. If the wasteland is filled with the physical experience of the pandemic, then the poem's total, explicit silence on the subject becomes just as important as the words themselves.
You see, the poem's difficulty, all its gaps and its feelings of broken communication, that all starts to make a new kind of sense. It actually mirrors the nature of pandemic trauma itself, an experience that was so isolating and yet so widespread that for the culture at large, it became basically unspeakable.
So in this reading, the poem becomes a memorial to the aftermath. All those corpses and bones aren't just soldiers on a battlefield. They're the civilian dead overwhelming the cities. The poem's fragmented memories reflect our collective forgetting. Its very existence becomes a testament to the pandemic's ghostly afterlife in our culture.
And this rereading really forces us to look at our own recent history, doesn't it? A century from now, when people try to understand our time, what art will they look to? What stories will be told? And maybe more importantly, what will be the great unspeakable silence that they have to decode?